Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining PRIP's Coffee Club. I'm Tania Morrill, and in this episode, we're talking about Microsoft Teams for frontline workers. My special guest today is Tom Arbuthnot from Empowering Cloud and PRIP. Hi, Tom.
Hey, Tanya, how's it going?
Yes, good. Thank you. Thank you for joining.
No, excited to talk frontline worker. It's a good topic.
Yeah, so it is a topic that's hot right now at Microsoft. We're seeing a lot of updates coming out about it. Can you kind of set the scene for us? What exactly are frontline workers, and what in particular is Microsoft talking about?
Yeah, so frontline worker is kind of anyone who's not desk based, so kind of the opposite of knowledge worker. So it might be, people in the field like utilities workers, maybe factory workers, people that are out in the public domain, so public key services, council workers, healthcare workers, anyone who's on the front line of services helping end users that isn't, but behind a contact center or behind a desk, is out in the field.
Right, so quite a broad sort of range of roles.
Yeah, very broad. It's a generic term, but yeah, the actual use cases vary quite specifically depending on the sector, the vertical, the responsibilities.
Great. And what sort of challenges have they faced historically when it comes to staying connected, especially in the new kind of modern hybrid or remote work environment?
Yeah, I mean, frontline workers have often been left behind on the technology front. So, you'll have the knowledge workers or the back office workers sitting behind computers with all the tools that enterprise IT gives them. And then the frontline worker has very little. Sometimes they don't even get user accounts to these systems. They maybe have a mobile or a deck device, but they haven't historically had access to the same kind of tooling or connectivity. And that's part of what Microsoft are driving for, is that there's value here to bring them into the environment in terms of connectivity and communications.
Great. And I know a lot of frontline workers rely on their mobile phones to stay connected, is usually their sort of go to device. What is Microsoft doing around mobile calling for frontline workers?
Yeah, so there's a couple of scenarios there. So sometimes the workers will be issued devices, and sometimes they'll bring their own device. In either scenario, potentially, if you give them a Microsoft Teams account, so an FSKU is F1 or F3 in Microsoft Land, which are SKUs or licenses specifically for frontline workers, that will give them access to the apps. So they could potentially install Teams, and they could have VoIP type calling. They can join meetings. But we can also go further. We can light them up for Teams Phone, so they could make Teams phone calls through their mobile app. But also with Mobile Connect, you can actually extend the Teams phone number through to their mobile as well. So they can potentially have a secondary number, like an eSIM type scenario, and have a dedicated number. And the use case there is potentially they can then make proper cellular calls, so they don't have to rely on data or Wi-Fi, because a lot of these workers are out in the field. You can't necessarily guarantee data connectivity. There's also Teams Phone Mobile for those that support it, where you can have a single mobile number be the mobile number for the frontline worker and the Teams phone number as well.
Great, thank you. Is there anything else viewers need to know about the Teams phone license for frontline workers specifically? Can you break that down a bit more?
Yeah, so it's the reason they've got a new dedicated license is it's a reduced cost license in line with the reduced cost of the frontline worker. So the theory there is frontline workers don't get to take advantage of all the capabilities of a Microsoft 365 suite, so they get a reduced cost. And it's the same thing with frontline worker. So if you're pairing that license up, there is a reduced cost for that Teams phone, so it can be very cost effective to activate those users rather than the standard Teams phone license.
Great. So the other thing we're seeing a lot of is different shared resources. So there's things like shared calling, shared device mode. What do businesses need to take note of here?
Yeah, shared is being kind of overused in our space, isn't it? So there's a few things there. One is so shared devices. So in say a retail scenario where you've got frontline workers, you might have people running around with tablets. They don't have dedicated tablets. They will be able to sign in and out. So it can be a shared device, but a personal profile. And when you sign out, all your data is gone and it's ready for the next person. And in that scenario, your phone number and your teams would follow you for your shift. Shared calling is something slightly different, and it's very exciting as well. It gives the ability to activate the ability to make calls without having to have a DDI per user. So this is something you can get with a Microsoft calling plan or pure IP support as well. And it means that potentially if you're activating lots of workers, say you're a big retailer, you've got thousands of frontline workers, you want them to be able to make the occasional phone call right from their tablet or their device. but they don't really need a DDI. Like they're not receiving direct calls very often. So with shared calling, you can activate them with the ability to make a phone call, and they don't need a per DDI.
Right. And my final question is, what sort of use cases and industries are you seeing these solutions really work in?
Yeah, I think there's been big pickup in construction where they have real needs to stay connected around sites, and often they are mixing between areas of good coverage and not so good coverage. So we've seen that be a use case, particularly running around with things like ruggedized tablets, or even ruggedized decked phones as well. And it's starting to pick up in retail as well, where increasingly that is a connected job in terms of understanding what stock and availability is about, what's the plan for the retail in terms of shelving and putting units out. Um, that used to be a very manual task, running around with bits of paper, but now that is all digitized. So again, bringing those workers into the fold in terms of digital connectivity is really key for retail.
Great. Thank you, Tom. And thanks everyone for joining us today. If you have any questions at all about Microsoft Teams for frontline workers, please do reach out to PRIP. Thank you.
Thanks.